Hey, mining family. Welcome to the mine. I'm Nemesis.
And I'm Relican.
And of course, we're not your babysitter. Do your own research. But let's dig in. PSUs, power supply units. So you want to mine crypto, part 7. Yo! The power supply is an essential part of the GPU mining rig. Corsair, Roswell, Seasonic, Cooler Master, Thermaltake, EVGA. These are all reliable brands of standard PSUs that you'll find in most, PCs across the United States, probably across the whole world. Seasonic, Athena Power, Intel, iStar USA, Supermicro, and HP all make server-grade PSUs also. Server-grade PSUs are made to run 24/7 and last much longer than a standard PSU. It's just by design of how they run.
Power supplies convert AC power from electric utilities into DC power used in most electronics. Look for 80 plus certified power supplies, as these are more efficient. You also see them labeled as 80 plus bronze. These can be used if you have them lying around, however, they will not last very long due to the 24-hour demand on them.
And they're not very efficient, just due to their own personal configurations.
80 plus gold, 80 plus titanium, and 80 plus platinum. Each of these has an increased power percentage of rated load, making platinum the most efficient. Great for mining, but preferred for long-term usage.
Yep, they're not going to last as long as a server grade, but for the need, they work. Modern power supplies have an automatic switch that allows you to go from 110 to 220 volt. You will need to buy separate power cables like this one. Now these are the power cables that I'm talking about. This has the one end going into the power supply, and then this end is going into a 220 triple light circuit breaker for me. So these are the cables that I use. There is an advantage for using 220 volt. It is more efficient. On 220, it uses less amperage and it has a more available wattage on that circuit. The lower amperage allows you, of course, to use more power on that circuit because, well, 110 at 220 at 20 amps, and 20 amp circuit will allow you to use about 1600 to 1800 watts. And that's pretty much maxing out the circuit. Now I always run an 80% rule, which will dial me back to about 1500 to 1600 watts on a 110 20 amp circuit, which is basically one really good microwave and a few light bulbs and you're popping the circuit. Where on a 220 amp, if I'm at 220 volt, if I'm at 30 amps, I could sit there run 5,500 watts of raw power. So do the math. I can put more demand on a 220 watt and not try to be putting a toaster in my house to start a fire.
Look for fully modular or mining specific power supplies. These come with all the additional wiring connectors you will need. The cables come labeled.
This is a necessity.
Know your GPU's power requirements and make sure there are enough outputs to meet your need. If your motherboard cannot handle the number of power supplies you're using, you can use multiple power supplies with an ATX power connector.
Like this. Ooh.
It connects the big cable of two power supplies together.
Yep. It would be like wink, something like this, but on the power supplies. I'll demonstrate at the end of this. Important tips. Now, these are really good things to know. Like I was saying before, if you are using multiple GPUs, only use 80% of the power supply's available wattage. This is the same thing with the circuit you're plugging everything into. Only use 80% of the total circuit of your circuit breaker of your house on any of your mining equipment. We do not need to be making toasters in your walls. Some of the GPU power cables have more than one connector requirement. it has more than one connector for the GPU power cables. This is so that the GPUs that have more than one connector have all the power going to it that it needs. Do not, and I repeat this, do not plug them into more than one graphics card. If there is an extra plug, just leave it unplugged, zip tie it off to the side, call it a day. Power supplies to the risers are either by Molex, the older style, or SATA, the newer style. Do not power more than 2 risers with one SATA or Molex. We do not need to be making fires. I know people who have ran 3 risers on their SATA cables and started a fire. Not recommended.
Ooh.
Yeah, this is things not to do. Zip ties are not mandatory, but they would certainly help avoid this.
Hey, let me go grab something. Oops, I just knocked over the shelf.
Right, this is a great way to knock over shelves, pull the cables out, mess up motherboards, and just wreak chaos and mayhem. Zip ties in the right strategically placed spots could help avoid all of this. Might not be necessary like this guy is proving, but man, it sure helps. I do not like trip and fall hazards. And let me show what my own power supplies and stuff like that. So again, this is the ATX cable. This allows you to plug in one power supply into the motherboard and allows you to hook in another power supply into the system so that when you power everything up, it turns both power supplies on at the same time. This is a good thing. And like I said, I do have an EVGA P2. This is a gold series. So like I said, gold series and titanium series, these are good ones. And they come with its own little extra spare bags and everything like that. So all the cables that you don't use, you can pop them in here, put them off to the side as spare parts. And this is the standard 110 power cable that the power supplies come with. So this is what would plug into the power supply, and this is what would plug into your standard 110 outlet. These can run like this indefinitely. They do not have any issues with running these. It's just when you're trying to run 3, 4, or 5 power supplies on the same circuit that you start running into making a toaster in your walls. And then the difference on the power supplies, cables, this was the 220, and again, this is the 110. So you can see right up off the difference, big differences, where these two parts are the same. These two parts are completely different from each other.
A thing of note, this connector here is for 220. It comes in a couple different styles. Make sure you know what you're getting.
Right, if you've got your own triplet power distribution unit, make sure you're getting the right cables for that. Or if you're plugging them directly into an outlet, make sure you're getting the right outlet cables with your surge protectors. Always run surge protectors and extra fuses just to buffer anything. This is an investment, guys. We want to protect our babies. And we want the power supplies, and they give it in its own little booklet and stuff, and it comes in its own nice little pouch. I mean, it's like EVGA. You've packaged this really nicely. It's like all nice and professional looking. It's nice. And with anything else, they do have their own cooling fans. Now the little bit of the better ones, like the Corsair, they have high efficiency cooling fans that will actually turn off when not needed. Anytime that you can turn this fan off, you're just a pinch more profitable because that's a little less electricity that you're using. And let's see here. On this one, this switch, do not switch it. If you get one of these EVGAs, this is like an eco mode. don't switch it over. It puts this thing into like a low voltage mode, and it's gonna just throw off how your rig is running. You're not gonna understand why you're losing cards, it's not powering up right. Just leave the eco mode off. You're gonna be efficient by dropping your power to your graphics cards, which we'll be covering, guess what, in the next episode. But this here is all the little connectors that we were talking about. So on the bottom here, this one here, actually let me turn it over so it's right side up. This is the motherboard power. So you're going to plug this one into one of the very long power supply, one of the ports in the motherboard off of this. And then you're going to be plugging in various ones of these. Now, that's where one of these kind of come in, so you can daisy chain them together. You'd be plugging them in with the cable that comes with this. And then with this particular one, I've got 6 ports for GPUs. Now remember that, 6 ports. So now this is a 1000 watts. I've got to remember if I'm using this on my motherboard, which the motherboard's gonna want a little bit of wattage. So you're figuring, 60 to 90 watts for your motherboard. And then if you've got graphics cards on here, you're figuring at least 100 watts per graphics card. And you got to take that into a factor of how many watts you're going to go with. So if I've got 6 graphics cards running at 100 watts a piece, that's 600 watts right off the bat in graphics cards. Plus, let's say another 100 watts, you're figuring that you're going to be running little over that 80% rule if you try to plug in 6 GPUs into this. Will I be plugging 6 GPUs directly into this? Probably not. I don't want to hit that 60% rule. Will I plug in, let's say, 5? Yes. This power supply will be perfect with 5 graphics cards, and it'll leave me 1 empty slot. That's fine. You don't feel mandatory that you got to fill these things out. It's very common that you're just hooking these things up for just your graphics cards and you're daisy chaining them together. So if you guys have any questions on any of the any of the power supplies, certainly drop some comments in down below. If you have any questions of what power supplies you should be running, and just let me know what graphics cards you're wanting to go after. Drop them in down below, and I'll try to help you out. Let me know, how many graphics cards you want, which ones you're going after, and I'll make some recommendations. That's all I can really do on my side. I'm not telling anybody what to do, but I will make suggestions. And with that, of course, smash those like buttons, hit the subscribe and the bell notification, and of course, like always, we'll see you on the next one.
Bye-bye.